how will AI affect the job market? Well, that's a big one. That's a big question. It will. I think that's the first thing that we need to get over. Some people are still denying it, basically saying, oh, it'll be fine. Yeah, it will get rid of jobs, but it's going to make more jobs. Maybe. I don't think it will. I think that the mechanism is going to be relatively slow and insipid. So we all expect, and the media feeds into this, kind of a big dramatic wholesale sweeping away of jobs. Poor Margaret, who's been in her job for 40 years, is sitting at her desk and then she's given it a pink slip. And the reason is you're being replaced by AI. Get out of here. Get out of here, Margaret. I don't think it's going to be so much that people getting fired because of AI. I think it's going to be more insipid. I think it's going to be we're seeing it already, the erosion of entry-level positions. Because AI right now is very good at algorithmic repetitive tasks, pattern matching, for example, which tends to be the stuff that you do at a lower level of an organization. So in a profession like law, a lot of the training, the first few years is discovery. Discovery is basically reading through huge amounts of information, finding patterns. Yeah, sounds familiar. There's a tool we have that's very good at that. It's called AI. So what we'll probably see, I keep saying probably, we're already seeing it, is an erosion of the lower levels. And it's going to be across various different industries, because suddenly you can bring in less people and they will be just as productive as having more people. So instead of hiring 100 people, you might be able to hire 20, give them AI tools, and they're able to do the work of 100. That means that those 80 people who graduate with a law degree or whatever it is, whatever the profession is, they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs. And we're seeing this in computer science in particular. The unemployment rate for computer science in America is 6.1% right now, between the ages of 21 and 30, so younger generations. Whereas the unemployment rate for the same age in America for art history grads is only 3%. So we're seeing an excess unemployment in computer science for the first time because people were told, learn to code, learn computer science, and you're going to be fine. We had things like Coal to Code, which was retraining miners in how to code. That looks like it may not be the secure route to a highly paying job, which is a concern for all of those people who've just gone through that training. I still think it's very important to learn to code and definitely learn some Python. But if you've spent years learning that and you've come out into the job market and suddenly there's 6% unemployment in your particular sector, that's a worry. But we're going to see this across industry after industry, not all at the same time, because AI has a jagged frontier. It is good at some things, it's not so good at other things, and it doesn't progress in all areas at the same time. So some areas will be affected before others. Some jobs will be safer because robotics has not caught up yet. So anything that's physical is going to take a bit longer because we don't have general purpose robotics yet. They're not cheap enough. That's probably going to be the next big thing if I was a betting man. But robotics has not yet had its ChatGPT moment. Not yet. There are other things like requiring human empathy and tasks that are highly non-algorithmic. So I like to use nursing as my example of a very safe job, because nursing is physical, very physical sometimes. It is empathic, so you need to be able to communicate with lots of different people, calm them down, make sure they're feeling comfortable, and it is non-algorithmic. When you go in for a shift, you do not know what you're going to be doing on that particular day. You're not doing the same task day after day, like you might be if you're sitting at an Excel sheet and plugging numbers in, moving numbers around. So nursing is a great example of a job that is probably safe for a longer time. Most care professions, honestly. Whereas if your job is non-physical, so you're sitting at a computer all day, it is algorithmic, you're doing repetitive tasks, and it doesn't require human empathy, you're mainly talking to a computer, it's at risk. And it will be the lower levels that will go first, but then we'll see the bottom of the pyramid starting to be eroded in every industry. And then we have less people at the low level, less juniors, so we don't need as many managers. If we don't need as many managers, do we need as many leaders, etc.? And it will start to collapse in. The counter argument to this is if we can just hire the same amount of people, we can keep the hiring up. That's not what's happening right now. Currently hiring is dropping, but if we kept the hiring up, potentially the companies could use AI and more hires to produce even more. That requires the economy as a whole to be booming, because now every company is producing more. It has more to sell, whether it's services like legal services or maybe whether you're making widgets. You now have a greater supply in each company and in each company in that industry because you're using AI. So you now need more cash in the system, you need more buyers to soak up that supply. So we need an increase in demand at the same time. If we get that, then people can keep their jobs, and then humanity just leaps on to the next level of productivity, basically. The problem is, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the reverse will happen, and we will have some companies who are using AI. They hire less people because they don't need as many people, which means you have more people unemployed, which means you have less money circulating in the economy to buy goods and services, which means that the companies don't need to grow or won't grow. And yeah, it all comes crashing down. Unfortunately, one of the ways that capitalism works is people go to work to earn an income, to buy goods and services from the companies that they're working for. And we have this little cycle which somehow has managed to survive more or less intact for the last couple of 100 years. AI could kick the bottom out of that. So we might need to look at alternatives. And that's why people are talking about UBI and other schemes like that. We do have to remember that capitalism as we know it is relatively new. We're in the paradigm of capitalism right now. So we think this is the only way that it can be. That's not necessarily the case. There definitely are alternatives, but there may be emendations and changes we can make. How it will affect the job market, it's complicated and it depends, and nobody knows. That's the other important thing. Anyone who says with any certainty this is what's going to happen is either lying or they don't know what they're talking about. We can make educated guesses, but I think the more honest intellectual position right now is to be like, ooh, I don't know. What I would say is be ready. So you can be ready for whatever happens by having flexibility. So if you have one job in one industry and one skill set, that makes you very at risk for whatever comes. So we know, the only thing we know is that there's going to be some kind of change. There's going to be a shake-up. We don't necessarily know the form of that. We don't know what industries it's going to affect, what jobs it's going to affect, etc. But if you diversify, you learn new skills, you start a new business, you get other income sources coming in, you build an audience, for example. This is something I always go on about. It gives you a solid foundation to pivot and move in whatever direction you need to move in. If and when whatever happens. But if we just bury our head in the sand, stay in our 9-to-5 jobs and hope for the best, it's going to be rough. There's no other way around that, I'm afraid. But the fact that you guys are watching a live with a British nerd talking about AI tells me you're already starting to think about these things. You're engaging with these topics already, which means you're in a much better position than 99% of humanity. So just stay flexible and stay curious, and they should be fine. I was about to throw in the UBI, yeah. It's a solution. It's a complicated one. And the problem with humanity is we don't tend to do anything until it's like crunch time. It's only when things are going really wrong that we're like, let's fix it. So I don't think anything proactive is going to happen. I don't think any of our governments are going to step up and proactively deal with this in the future. Also, most of our governments are just thinking a year or two ahead. This is where China does have an edge on us in AI in particular, is that their plans are decades ahead. So they can actually think and plan on the longer scale. Whereas here it tends to be 4 years maximum until the next election, which is difficult when we need to deal with a history-changing technology. We need a time span that is more than 4 years. Yeah, Haifu saying most large successful businesses will have less than 100 people versus currently 110,000 right now. I agree. We need less people to do the same amount of work. That is the calculation here. And there are companies like, what was it, the one I was looking at the other day? It's a DocuSign. Yeah, it's DocuSign. It's DocuSign who make a document signing software. It's good. It's fine. It's the industry standard. They have 8,000 employees. What are you all doing? It's a document signing solution. So I think bloated headcounts like that are in trouble because you don't need that many people, especially because we can code up our own little mini tools right now. So I could sit down and code a document signing tool for my personal use relatively easily. Sure, I won't be able to sell it as a SaaS like DocuSign do, but for my personal use, that's going to become easier and easier to do. So companies are going to be either spinning up their own internal versions, which will be highly customized, so their own Salesforce, their own DocuSign, etc. Or there's going to be new entrants coming into the market who will be able to challenge DocuSign and Salesforce. How many people has Salesforce got headcount? Because Salesforce is not a good piece of software. 76,000 people. When people can spin up their own CRM or new entrants come in with a much streamlined, easier to use, cheaper version of these tools, which is becoming easier. Like Base 44, for example, was vibe coded. So he vibe coded a vibe coding tool in 6 months and sold it for $80 million. That should tell you the kind of direction that we're heading in here. It is not about huge headcounts. It's about individuals, like this dude Shlomo, putting together tools that are just as good, but much faster and much more lean without the head count of 75,000 people dragging down every business decision you have to make. So I'm not a fan of Salesforce. I've been forced to implement it and work with it a few times, and wow, it's old fashioned. High Fruit saying, yeah, China's businesses and intertwined infrastructure and supply chain and internal partnerships, they win. Yeah, if they can get the chip manufacturing nailed down, that might be the ball game. So at the moment, Nvidia is still the lead in terms of chip manufacturing. China is pushing with Huawei. They're not there yet. And this is the reason, supposedly, why DeepSeek's R2 model is not released yet. It was meant to release in May, but they're doing it with internal Huawei chips, and they have not been able to do it. That's the speculation, at least. So currently, Nvidia, and this is why Nvidia is the largest company on earth at the moment, has the largest market capitalization, first $4 trillion company. They basically have the world by the throat because they are the ones who are producing the GPUs that we need to train these models. If China and Huawei specifically can catch up with their Ascend chips, that might be the ball game.